Hey guys. Today was a pretty big day at the General Assembly with respect to bills that came out of the House Education Committee. So Republicans put up two bills that I want to tell you about. One bill you're going to be familiar with already. It is the anti-CRT bill. So once again, the Education Committee has done it again, put this great bill up. I'll tell you about that. But a second bill is dedicated to really engendering more respect in the classroom. It's a discipline bill, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But first of all, let's start out with the anti-CRT bill that was just put up. This is House Bill number 187. You'll recall the name stays the same from the last bill that was put up in the last session, equality in education. So let me tell you about this. Big shout out to Representative Torbett, Blackwell, Willis, and Wheatley. They were the primary sponsors. As we all know, the House is going to go for this, right? I mean, all the Republicans are going to vote for it. I'm praying that this will be more bipartisan than it was last time, and that we're going to get at least 4 or 5 Democrats to come along. And I think the way they've written the bill this time, that's going to happen. Let's take a look at the bill. So, first of all, you're going to see here that this yellow part, this is what's called legislative intent. So this is really important so that if anyone, has to litigate this in the future or what have you, there's going to be no ambiguity about what the legislators intend to do with this bill. What they're saying is, look, the respect for the dignity of others, we've got to uphold that. We've got to get back to that in this state. We've got to respect the rights of others, differing opinions. So that is signaling academic freedom, preserving academic freedom right there, and foster and defend intellectual honesty, freedom of inquiry and instruction. So this is sort of like what they're doing at UNC now, where they are saying, listen, we've got to stop having this woke bullcrap that's coming in and trampling all over the purpose of education, which is hearing all sides of a matter and legitimate good faith inquiry. Okay, freedom of speech, etc. So this bill this time around goes a little bit further, okay, in upholding academic freedom. Now, public school units shall not promote one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. We get that. So CRT is not just saying, hey, there's white supremacy. It's also saying by extension that Black Americans, immigrants, etc., are inferior. That's not okay. I'm just going to go over a few of these. You're reading it on your screen. An individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of their skin. So this is what we've seen, or their sex. We've seen this with privilege walks. We've seen this where students have to come up to the front of the room if they're white. We see this when students have to confess their guilt for being a certain skin color or confess that they're oppressed because of another skin color. And so really what we're seeing here is this scapegoating, stereotyping, collective punishment. Those are acts, ACTS acts, okay? Meritocracy is inherently racist or evil. We're seeing that a lot where honors classes are saying that, because it's honor offered at the school, that somehow that's upholding white supremacy. Ridiculous. That the U.S. government should be violently overthrown. We've heard that during Black Lives Matter. I'm sure it still persists. And the rule of law doesn't exist, but it's instead a series of power relationships and struggles among racial or other groups. All of these guys, they're the tenets of CRT. A year and a half ago, many of you may not have been as familiar with it, but now there's a steady drumbeat of that. Now CRT has turned into DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So all these things are in our lexicon now. So this is, as far as learning materials go, what it's saying is, look, an impartial discussion of controversial aspects of history ain't going to cut it. You can talk about slavery. You should talk about slavery. you can deal with all of these things. We should be dealing with these things in the classroom. What you cannot do is present a one-sided account of said history. That's not going to work. Okay, so that's what this bill is saying. And if anyone tells you that this is trying to squelch free speech or squelch, academic freedom, you can plainly see that's not what this is doing. Now, my big concern with this bill is that violators, okay, at the district level, they're to be reported to the DPI. Now, we've already been covering for the past month that the DPI is getting reports on sexual predators in the classroom who have either voluntarily surrendered their license, they've been arrested, they're under investigation, or convicted. The DPI is doing nothing. So if they don't do anything about that important subject, how are we going to expect them to give a full accounting of what's going on in the classroom with CRT? We can't. Now, I don't have a plan B, because that's kind of the natural protocol for this program. So maybe we set up not the lieutenant governor himself, he's way too busy for that, but maybe some sort of office within the lieutenant governor's office where he can monitor that, have some staff to do that, because Superintendent Truitt is definitely not up for the job. All right, so now let's moving right along. This is a school discipline bill, I guess you could call it, but I think it's a teacher's respect bill, because let's face it, a lot of teachers are leaving the profession because they're not being respected on the inside of the classroom by the students. We've seen the videos, we've read the news reports where students are cussing teachers out. They're even obviously getting physical with them, which is a crime, but they're not being respected. This is a bill that will help restore some of that. Let's take a look at it. House Bill 188, Standards of Student Conduct. I think Representative Blackwell put this up maybe a year ago or so, and it went nowhere. Here's to hoping that it does go somewhere. These two bills together and the parental rights bill will restore much needed order in our schools. So look at this. Governing bodies shall use best practices to develop and enforce discipline policies that do not discriminate against students on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, or disability. That is an absolute. That is, that's absolutely got to happen. But we have seen and we have covered discipline policies that suggest that white children should be disciplined, Black children should not. Again, can't do that. And we know that already. I mean, this is, enshrined in federal law also. Now, here's where it gets good. Right now in law, examples of conduct that would not be deemed a serious violation include the use of inappropriate or disrespectful language, noncompliance with a staff directive, dress code violations, and minor physical altercations that don't involve weapons or injury. Yeah, that's coming back, because we can see now that ain't working. If you were a teacher, how would you like it if you were called everything but your God-given name and made a fool of on a daily basis? This is happening. We have heard about this. Okay. I do like this one also. H1, that's right down below it. Governing bodies shall include measures that will be taken to support a student during suspension to mitigate learning loss, whether that is, online schooling or high intensity tutoring or whatever. That is the most important, right? They don't have to be in the environment if they're going to act up, but that is the most important. And it goes on to say too that we need to do everything, we meaning the state and teachers and schools, in our power to make sure that we're just not indiscriminately putting someone in long-term suspension or things like that. It has got to be sensible, fair, okay? But we cannot allow minor assaults not to be considered serious. Anytime you put your hands on someone, come on, We know that. So these two bills, they're in the Education Committee. I believe they go to rules next. So they're in a holding pattern. So we're keeping an eye on these two and the parental rights bill. And so need to keep pleasantly being persistent with your reps, pleasantly persistent with if you're making phone calls to the DPI and Catherine Truitt, let her know that you expect for her to follow the law. Let your representative know that you expect them to do what they said they were going to do. If they're Democrats, they said that they're going to improve education. These two bills would go a long way for that. If they're Republicans, we know they campaigned on stopping CRT, right?